All right, those of you that are looking to add Novo Nordisk to buy this stock on the dip, there are some things about the company you need to know about before making your decision. Of course, there are also some of you that own Novo Nordisk stock and are considering selling the stock. I also think that you should know these things before buying or selling the stock. So whether you're thinking of buying or selling Novo Nordisk stock, these are some factors about the company's recent developments that you need to know about before making your decision.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
Right, so you've probably already heard about the company's updated outlook for the rest of this year, where they downgraded their revenue growth and profit growth expectations. So the implied growth rate for the second half of this year is just in the mid single digits after growing more robustly in the first half of the year. And the management team saying the lower outlook that they're providing is predominantly linked to the performance of the US business. So internationally, the underperformance is not as large as the underperformance in the United States. It's the underperformance in the US that's causing the overall performance outlook to diminish significantly for the rest of this year. So the management team was also asked about its difficulties and whether or not they will go into 2026, or if the difficulties are for 2025 and then if 2026 would be a better year. The management team said that about 2026, we're not going to talk about that today. Right. So this was on July 29th when they provided investors with this outlook, with this downgraded outlook for 2025. And the management team deciding not to discuss 2026 during this conference call. Of course, I think some of that has to do with the uncertainty about its business in 2026. As I've discussed extensively, one of the reasons why the management team downgraded the outlook for 2025 is because compounders are still selling their drugs, their lower priced versions of Novo Nordisk weight loss and diabetes drugs. And they were not supposed to be allowed to, right? The regulators in the United States took away their approvals to sell those drugs back in May, but they're still selling them. And so Novo Nordisk is trying to use litigation, trying to use the legal system to stop those sales. And a lot of what happens in 2026 has to do with its success in those legal proceedings. If Novo Nordisk can be successful in stopping those compounders from selling those lower priced versions, then I expect 2026 to be a strong year for Novo Nordisk. Maybe even in the final quarter of 2025, although unlikely because the legal system in the United States moves so slowly. So maybe perhaps 2026 could be the year, or could be when the company can reinvigorate sales if they are able to remove those lower priced options from the marketplace. Speaking more to that, in the first quarter in May, they said that their market research estimate was 1 million patients were using the compounded GLP-1 for obesity treatments. Then the FDA grace period for bulk compounding on the 503B ended on May 22nd. So that's when they were not allowed to sell anymore. And their assumption was that would lead to increased patients using the branded versions of GLP-1s in the second half of this year. And by branded versions, they mean their own version or that from Eli Lilly, which are higher priced versions. And Novo is okay competing against similarly priced versions, but the compounded versions are so much lower priced that Novo and Eli Lilly, for that matter, have a difficult time competing against them. But they were supposed to lose that privilege since May 22nd. So unfortunately, their latest market research indicates it's not happened. And that's one of the assumptions that Novo changed, is just saying, no longer assuming those lower priced versions would be removed. And now they're assuming that those will remain in the marketplace for the rest of this year. So that updated outlook, that increased competition from those compounded versions, is the reason why they downgraded the outlook for the rest of the year. So the latest market research still indicates that 1 million patients or more are being on the compounded GL1 obesity in the United States market. So if those compounded versions are removed from the marketplace, that could be potentially 1 million customers being split between Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. And I think you can add an estimate in there that if those 1 million patients had to pay for the branded versions, those you wouldn't have 1 million patients anymore. You might have, let's say, 750,000 or so, because 250,000 would not be in the market anymore because the price would be higher and unaffordable to them or unattractive to them. So they'll just be out of the market completely. And then maybe 750,000 or so will be split between Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. I would estimate that Eli Lilly will take a larger share, Novo Nordisk will take a smaller share, but still that could be anywhere between 250,000 or 300,000 customers for Novo Nordisk on its GLP-1 obesity drug just in the US alone. So it's a big deal, and it's still possible that regulators clamp down on these GLP-1 compounders, but it's very uncertain. And Novo Nordisk just said, you know what, we're just going to expect nothing to happen for the rest of this year. We're just going to assume they remain in the marketplace and they keep these customers to themselves. And then to make matters worse, they do see patients switching from Ozempic to the competitor product as well. So competition, whether from lower priced versions or from the versions from Eli Lilly, are hurting demand for Novo Nordisk products, even though overall market demand for these weight loss drugs and diabetes treatments are soaring. There's potentially a market opportunity of 1 billion patients, where right now only a few million are being treated for these diseases. These competitive forces are taking away from the growth opportunity in the near term. Longer term, I think the tailwinds are strong enough to lift all of these companies up higher. However, in the short term, the competitive dynamics, but mostly from the compounders, those competitive dynamics are hurting the company's growth expectations, and that's why the price is as low as it is. But there are catalysts, um, there are things that can lift Novo Nordisk higher in this year, right? If we get positive news on the litigation front, that alone can be enough to lift Novo Nordisk stock significantly higher from where it is today. This document I'm reading is from the company's update to Wall Street Analyst. I've made this document available for my channel members, and there are dozens more like this where I evaluate a company's transcripts. I highlight the things that I find important, and I make them available for my channel members. You can join my channel as a member for less than $5 a month, and this is just one of the benefits you'll receive among many more. You can click the description in the link to find all the benefits you get with a channel membership. Hey everyone, so many of you have been asking about my investing strategy, and I'm excited to announce that I've written a book that's available for sale now that describes my 6-step investing framework for evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.